Live from the Washington, D.C. area, it's the Inside Scoop. All the news that our viewers want to know. Now, here's the host.
Hi folks, Cesar here. The night before the big election, November 5th, 2018, we have some great guests in the studio tonight. We have a great show lined up for you. But it is the eve before the election in the country, in the Commonwealth, in the county, and in a community called Herndon. With me tonight are my dear friends, candidates for council for re-election, Sheila Olem and Signe Friedrichs. Ladies, welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you. Always good to be here, Cesar.
And full disclosure, I am a candidate as well, but tonight's about you all and the great things you've done for Herndon. And thank you for coming. I know it's tough to run a campaign and be here the night before, but you all are dedicated people, so thank you for coming out. Lots going on in Herndon.
Yeah, we have a development coming up.
Big development.
Lots of development going on in Herndon. And it's
Too much, just right?
Just right, but
Okay.
it's been a long time coming. I moved there in '90, and I've seen 3 downtown developments come and go. So I am very excited about
Almost there?
this.
Okay.
I would like to see this done.
Okay.
And live close enough that I can walk downtown and enjoy it.
That's the cool part about Herndon, right?
Yes.
It's the walkability of it. It's getting there.
I think that's the best part. I mean, it's been walkable ever since I moved there, which was in 1996, but we're really focused right now. We have a special committee that Sheila used to chair called the, what is it, the Pedestrian Bicycle Walking,
Good
I
stuff.
forget what it is. PBAC. We'd just call it PBAC. I can't remember what it stands for.
Pedestrian Bicycle Advisory Committee.
But the goal is to make Herndon so walkable and bikeable that people will not want to get into their cars.
Absolutely.
Because in the area that we're in, traffic is the biggest issue. People, if you ask them what they hate or what they'd like to see improved anyway, it's always the traffic situation.
Traffic.
And you have to have density in an area like this, but you have to do something about the traffic. So we're doing a lot in the downtown, and we want to make sure that it doesn't impede people's movement.
Now, I remember certain bike racks popping up. That was you, Sheila, right?
Yes.
that was. If you haven't seen them, folks, there's really cool little bike racks in Herndon.
And they look like little bicycles.
They do. Very cool.
Yeah, when I first got elected back in 2010 and was on the PBAC committee, I went through the minutes, and found that we had these bike racks just sitting in a closet somewhere for, I don't know, 6 to 12 months. So I kept pushing until I think that took another 6 or 12 months until we got them put all over town, because we had already redone the streetscape, and that was a big issue.
Yeah, and actually they've started to put them up again, because we've had a few
different colors, right?
Yeah.
Those are cool.
So Herndon was rebranded a while back, and we had a specific palette of colors to use, and those bike racks are being painted in those colors, which is actually kind of cool. It's going to take me a while to get used to it, though.
Yeah,
it's different.
I like the black. The black was cool. They good contrast there. There's a couple cool businesses as part of the development happening. And I want to give a shout out to the Green Lizard folks for creating that cycling community that didn't exist in Herndon. I mean, there was the bike path and stuff, but those folks really brought like the cyclists out, right? And people aren't ashamed to be cyclists, right? So they kind of like go out there.
They have a place to go in Herndon, because as a member of the PBAC committee for quite a few years, I think I was chair of that for 6 years. The bicyclists didn't really have a place to go in Herndon, and they're not really people that would go to the bar before or after. But the Dairy Queen's always been a very popular spot, but because of the nice seating that the Green Lizard has, and because they've got all the repair service and all the snacks that the bicyclists want, it just makes a great option. And people like me, I have a bike. I'm not one of those bicyclists that get on the trail and do 25 miles, but I really enjoy going in there and hanging out with that crowd as well.
Yeah, you can have a little beer, micro beer.
They do have that.
We have so many great little tiny businesses in the town of Herndon. They're opening up every day. We have a cat cafe coming in, a tea shop that's opening up, a new craft brewery, not a brewery, but a craft bar, I guess, called Mile 21, which of course references the 21st mile of the Washington and Old Dominion Bike Trail. So lots of great businesses, but I will say that there are a couple businesses in town that have really changed the tenor of the entire town once they got started. And one of them that everybody knows is Jimmy's, and I think Green Lizard is another one of them, where before, like Sheila said, if you're bicycling all day, a bar isn't necessarily where you're going to go for refreshment, but the Green Lizard really is.
Yeah, afterwards.
And afterwards, right? So, I can't say enough about our small businesses. They support our schools. They support all of our civic groups. They support our arts community. I mean, we couldn't do anything without our small businesses. We're grateful for our large businesses as well, but you can really see when a small business puts itself out there because it costs them money and time and employee hours that they can't necessarily spare. So I love our small businesses.
Yeah, I think it also feeds into sort of the theme and the feel. It's these little shops, kind of medium shops, but they bring and cater to a different segment of people. So that's why you have all the diversity in there.
Well, one thing really neat about once the Green Lizard really started catching on and they had so many people going there, they came to the town and asked whether or not they could convert one parking space on weekends into a bicycle rack. Well, legally, you can go park one bicycle in every car space and get away with that because that's their vehicle. So we thought that's perfect because you can park 15 or 20 bikes on their big rack. And so they take up one place, and the people riding their bicycles, these are not your, $50 bikes. These are expensive bikes. And so they want to look at it, so they'll go into the Green Lizard and they can watch their bike and make sure it's still there. And also sometimes, because the Green Lizard is so friendly with all of them, they will go to other restaurants and say, hey, we want to go to Jimmy's or the Breeze. Can you keep an eye on our bike? So.
And again, for the folks at home that don't know, it's right as you're approaching mile marker 20, the caboose. That's where all this good fun stuff happens, right? Just go into Herndon and have a good time there. So good stuff with the development. Something else that's I think important for folks. Certainly we mentioned the traffic a little bit, but there's all this housing and development going on, and what are you hearing from folks about any concerns, or because I know I've talked to people, I just kind of want to hear what you're hearing out there for housing.
Well, I can tell you I've been hearing for a while because of my situation. I have a son that graduated from college in 2008, and I didn't have the resources to hand him a nice big down payment. So he stayed with me for about 6 or 8 years, saving up money so that he could buy a place. And he wanted specifically to stay in the town of Herndon. He grew up there. He's been there since he was 5. And so he finally found a place he could afford, and he absolutely loves it. He's Mr. Homeowner now.
Good for him.
Yeah, but it took a while because you've got to really look. And he was lucky that, we get along, and he didn't mind staying there, and he works right in town at the Airline Pilots Association.
And I moved to town mainly because it was walkable, but as you know, when you're buying a home, the main thing you think about is price. And I moved to Herndon because it was the most affordable part of Fairfax County. My husband had a job downtown, and we needed a place to live that we could afford. And Herndon was just at the outer edge of what we could afford. And I've talked to a number of homeowners who've expressed similar things to me. They've said, I moved to Herndon because I could afford to live here, and I want to stay here. And young people will say to us, and I know Sheila's referred to that with her son, they'll say, I can't afford to buy a house here. I'll live in an apartment forever, but I don't want to throw my money away on rental fees. So affordable housing is important. When your teachers and your police officers can't afford to live in your town, workforce housing is a very significant issue.
And those are different ideas or projects, right, in my mind. Affordable housing, Herndon has a lot of that. But they're segmented out in certain areas. Workforce
Right.
housing, for me, is I think what people really want in terms of sort of the wave of the future. It's development that includes units for workforce people, as opposed to stick them over there by the airport under the bridge,
Right.
where land might be cheaper. It's something the developer takes into consideration when they're actually proposing and designing a project, right? And
Right,
that's
if
kind of
you-
what I'm hearing.
Exactly, if we require that. The other thing is, as we grow and older areas get redeveloped, there is a big concern out there, and I know you've both talked to people, that if these lower priced units go, where do all of our service people come from? I can tell you, Signe and I have both been through Leadership Fairfax, and one of the things I learned was that BWI and Reagan have a much easier time recruiting staff than Dulles Airport, because Dulles Airport is a lot harder to get to. That'll change when the Silver Line comes.
Oh,
But
okay. Just
you
because
have
of
to
the
pay them more.
Greenway and 28 and
because they don't live
traffic.
close and they've
Yeah.
got to take some type of transportation to get there. So if we don't have affordable places for people to live, where are the CVS and the Giant people and the Safeway people going
Yeah.
to live?
Yeah, that was another concern I heard, and we can kind of touch on it now. If developers keep delivering sort of high-end million-dollar units, that's only pushing property values up.
Absolutely.
And that's great if you're able to afford that, write a
Mhm.
check, sure. My property values go up, my investment's doing well. But I've spoken to a lot of folks that are on fixed incomes. They own their homes. They're in the homes their parents owned, right? And their lifestyle doesn't like an increase in property value taxes,
Right.
right? And that's so when people talk about this, no, it's not the best thing to just keep developing, because you're in essence pushing people out of the
Right.
area, right? So
I've talked to a number of fairly upset people about that, and I know that Fairfax County has some tax. I forget what it's called, but when you make when you're on a fixed income and you own your home, you can get a certain amount of forgiveness of your taxes. But I don't know that we have that in Herndon, and of course in Herndon we pay Fairfax County taxes and a small town tax on top of that. So the cost can be a little overwhelming if you're on a very fixed income.
yeah, and that's again for me, that's a big concern that I keep hearing from folks.
Right.
And it's a complicated issue. I think going forward, councils and really being a microcosm of the country are going to have to deal with this. So folks, we'll be right back with our next segment, and hope you join us. So
Okay, so we drowned the fire, stirred it, drowned it again, and now just feel if it's cold.
Yeah.
Cool.
Smokey just gave me a bear hug.
I know. Already posted it.
I got a crick in my neck, limp in my step, cramping in my muscles every time I try to flex. I'm scared of. Very excited that I can do this. Was remember you know I usually say no, but if you throw me love, I'll throw you some more.
It's a big responsibility.
Oh, it's huge. I know, it's huge.
And the salary.
Oh my god, yes. I mean,
Right?
like, I was about to move in with my parents, and right before, yeah, so this saved me.
I really believe in you, you know?
Thank you. It's nice to hear that from someone.
These are cool. Did you
We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Hi folks, Cesar here, back with you in our second segment. We have very special guests this evening from the town of Herndon, council members Sheila Olem and Signe Friedrichs. Thank you for sticking around. We've got a lot to talk about this night before the big election across the country and county. Herndon being the microcosm, I think, that represents a lot of the country out there. So we've got a few topics we want to get to. We were talking about affordable housing and some more of the development downtown happening.
Yeah, so one of the very cool, I'm sorry if I'm interrupting. One of the very cool things about Herndon is that we were recently able to buy a plot of land that was contiguous with another plot of land that the town owned. And that allowed us to, for the first time, really think about what do we want our downtown to look like? Do we want it to be small businesses? Do we want it to be housing? And what we ended up doing was developing a public-private partnership with a developer called Comstock. And they are a prize-winning developer. They have developed some pretty significant properties in the Washington, D.C. area, and for all I know, elsewhere. They have internationally known architects, and they're developing a little downtown that will have an arts focus. And that's something we've been working on for, what, 30 years?
Over 30
An
years.
incredibly long amount of time, and we're very excited about this. And one of the things that I'm most excited about is the arts center that they're going to be building for us, and the arts walk that they're creating. And the arts walk is going to have a little bit of a focus on Herndon's history, but it's also mainly intended to be a public space for families and people to have festivals, to hang out, maybe a splash pad so that the little kids can be running through it in the summertime. My husband and I love watching little kids do that. It's
As
better
a
than
cyclist,
TV.
I've ridden through those things.
Oh,
It's been
that
hot.
sounds like fun.
Oh yeah, it's the best thing.
So, I mean, there's been a lot of discussion, I think, of the form that we want it to take, and I guess after 2 or 3, has it been 2 years or almost 2 years that we've been working on this particularly part?
Little over.
You can go to our website and you can
Yes.
actually see the bits that the Comstock developers have developed to show us. So if you go to it's www.herndon-va.gov, you can see all the plans. You can see, down to what kind of light bulbs they want to use in the exterior. There's going to be a parking garage. There's going to be, and if you add that to the Smart Cities initiative that we're starting off, the downtown is going to be pretty amazing. But we also wanted to have that personality of Herndon. I think that's what we're hearing loud and clear from citizens, is that they want it to be small, they want it to be beautiful, and they want it to be homey.
Yeah.
So
I've heard people make sure you don't make it a mini Reston.
Yeah, we've heard that a lot, and we're having trouble kind of figuring out which part of Reston they don't want, because there are small, homey, arty parts of Reston, and then there's like Reston Town Center, which
Town Center, I think, is
is
what people
cool
are
in
worried
itself,
about,
but no, we don't want that in the downtown.
Yeah, we're not going to have that height. But if you go back, I've gone back as far as the late 80s, looking in town council minutes, and the arts were talked about then. And when they were building the Herndon Community Center, which was pretty new when I moved to Herndon in '90, they talked about having a place there for the arts to have some performance. The Town Square Singers was one of the first music groups that we had in town. But the arts have always been a part of that. And over the years, when we've had those 3 developments that came and went, they were much larger scale. Because at one point they were talking about a theater that would seat 500 people. And I think they were talking about 25,000
Square
feet?
Yeah.
plus, maybe it was 50,000 square feet. It was huge. I remember seeing, they actually had a model of it at one point. They had a charrette with little model buildings of what the downtown would look like. And people just thought that was too grand, too large scale. So it is way smaller. And the buildings, I mean, you live in Fortnightly, and some of those townhomes are 4 stories. So I don't think we're looking at heights any higher than that. And we do have a limit on the height.
So I know there's been kind of like some discussions on what's going in there, the funding of it, and what does supporting arts and the center and the nonprofits really mean. So from my perspective, throwing a grant at the nonprofits at the end of the year, if there's some monies left in the budget, to me that's not true support. Mm-hmm. True support is a line item in a budget with a number in it. And again, that could be 50,000, it could be 500,000, whatever is decided. That's where you support and then build on sort of the longevity and long-term success, depending on the outcome you want, right? And
Right.
for a lot of people, that's still unclear. I've been talking to people, and it's almost like, well, what's going to happen there? What's going in? So, to the extent you can, just like your view on ideally where you would like to see all that go, and the makeup of the organizations, facilities, who's owning that? Is it the town? And what does that look like going forward?
Well, I
By
can
the way,
tell you.
we have 2 more segments if we
Yeah.
need to.
Yeah, I don't think you want to hear 2 more segments on this, but with our community center, which is really awesome, and
Mm-hmm.
we have added and added and added and spent millions and millions of dollars on brick and mortar.
Mm-hmm.
And this year, when we passed our budget, we're subsidizing the staffing $2.2 million. So
This is public money,
This is
taxpayer
public
dollars
money.
into the
And,
community.
and it is great, and it's a great family place to go. But now that my children are grown, I prefer to go to a place that has more adults than being more child. It's totally oriented. When my children were small, I could take them to the community center for swim classes or other classes. I like to swim laps, so I would go to the pool. So there we are. We're there at the pool. I can swim my laps. They can do their class or play, and it was great for all of us. So I know that our families really love that, and we also cater to a lot of people that live right outside of the town, which is great. If we also fund an art center and we also help it exist, then those people are going to come to events, which now they do, but the events are very small. We have art space downtown. But you can ask all of our restaurants, and they'll tell you the nights that they have art opening at the little gallery art space, they'll get a bump in their business. An extra 10 to 15 people are coming in. But they're only going to have 30 or 40 people at one of those events. Whereas Next Stop Theater, they have over 100, but they're in the industrial strength theater, which is a little
kind of out there a little bit.
kind of out there. So people get in their cars, they turn right, and they go to the Reston Town Center because it's right there and it's open. So that could really support our downtown businesses, and we do have the meals tax, so that will add to the taxes that the town brings in. So I think it would be well worth it.
I've been looking at this, and 30 years is right. I mean, this thing's been out there for 30 years. And everything I've read always said sort of the public funding of this. It was never, at least I didn't see anywhere where it was going to be privatized, right? Where it had to be sort of a private entity paying for this facility, right? It was almost going to be like another amenity where the town would certainly support it. Not the whole thing, obviously you have the nonprofits for that, but where did that start getting sort of off the rails there? Because I think, you all are certainly in support of it, but where did the disconnect from the plan originally promised to the people to what is being proposed on the table now?
Well, as far as I know, no one has brought it forward in any meeting that I've had in a town council meeting. So I haven't had anyone tell me something's going on. You just hear little rumors. But reality, if you want the arts to be there, if we give away part of that space for a for-profit business, then you're taking it away from the arts. And right now, part of the reason art space, it is so small, they're very limited as the types of events that they can have. And if you have very few people coming to your event, then you're not going to make much money. But you're going to, there's going to be a certain cost when you have a jazz concert. And if all you can seat are about 40 people,
Yeah.
but if you could seat 100 people, then you could really make some money. But they pretty much have to get, the ticket sales are not going to be able to handle it and people be able to afford it.
Yeah.
I think something that that we don't really pay a lot of attention to that we should is the connection between two arts groups.
Mm-hmm.
The initial, when I come on the council, we were talking about having a Next Stop Theater and the art space type facility in the same building. And Next Stop Theater has a regular group of people who come, every time there's an event. So when people like that will come into a building, they will park, they'll walk to the arts gallery and have a look, maybe buy some art, maybe buy something in the gift shop, go to the show, and then go out to dinner. And they already do that. And as Sheila has alluded to earlier, right now they're going out to Reston.
They make a right.
Yeah. If they were in the center of town, those people would be going to our downtown restaurants, which would then be thriving. And some of our restaurants are thriving, but there's certainly nothing compared to what they could be. Yeah. We really, really need those two nonprofits in the downtown. Yeah. And I know we have to get back to talking about financing that, but we made room in our budget for a golf course. We made room in our budget for a community center. That is a large amount of land on which we do not get taxes, so we subsidize it that way. We also subsidize, as Sheila mentioned, we subsidize the staff and the programming at the community center, and nobody's arguing that that's a bad idea. It's not. It's a great idea. But if we want to have a successful arts center, we have to look for room in our budget to make it happen. And I don't believe we need to raise taxes at this point. But I do think we do need to be, as you point out, serious about funding it and about how do we want that to work. I mean, they've recently hired a new CEO and president who has 40 years of experience in arts administration. Obviously, they're going to take off. So do we want to help them and goose them and make sure that they get where they need to go? Or do we want to just hope that they fail so we can put something else in there? I certainly don't want to hope that fail.
I'm with you both on this. And full disclosure to the folks, I'm on the board of the Arts Herndon. So I mean, I think it's not just an amenity. And I think it's kind of, for me, something that brings people in. And it crosses all ethnic boundaries and languages, because arts and performances and music, all that stuff just transcends. And for me, it's just another way to bring people in and have them experience something together. And when they do that, I think they form a connection. And that connection is not just to them, but to the town. We'll be right back for our next segment.
I surrender.
All right, pal. Get ready for the day, buddy.
Hey, Dad. Hey, Dad. Do we have a gun?
What's that?
Do we have a gun?
We're back.
I surrender.
All right, pal. Get ready for the day, buddy.
Hey, Dad. Hey, Dad. Do we have a gun?
What's that?
Do we have a gun?
Maybe you can make retirement happen. After all, you made this vacation happen.
Double points with every purchase?
Cleverly merging promotions.
Love it.
Cross-referencing travel sites. And booking all your flights with those...
Vouchers. I got us bumped.
They were like, oh. But now they're like... Aloha. You aced this vacation. Now get the tips you need to get on track at aceyourretirement.org.
I tried Oxy at a couple of parties. I thought I had it under control. I didn't know it'd be this addictive. I didn't know how far I'd go to get more.
opioid dependence can happen after just 5 days. Know the truth, spread the truth. What to?
We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Hi folks, Cesar back with our third segment and my dear friends and guests from the Herndon Town Council, Sheila Olem and Signe Friedrichs. Lady, thank you so much for coming back.
Thank you.
We were chatting about the whole arts development, arts center, and I just wanted to finish off that piece from my end. Was I think for me growing up, a community like that, an arts facility, exposed me to a lot of stuff. It's where, you know, I connected with the Cub Scouts. It's where I learned to play the guitar, and you know, it's met all sorts of people from different walks of life. And I think that's the cool thing about what Herndon can be looking forward.
Well, I wanted to share a story. I have two sons, and they were both really into sports. So we spent a lot of times in gyms for wrestling tournaments and football and so forth. I minored in drama and art, so I really enjoyed the arts. But we had, at Hutchison Elementary School, where my boys went, we had a lot of kids that didn't have the disposable income to get involved in music. And when Arts Herndon got the Music Loft, a business in the town of Herndon, to start doing percussion or bucket drumming. And they go to the elementary schools because this is cheap. They got donations from, I believe, Home Depot of these orange buckets that you see, the orange Home Depot buckets. They take them and the kids learn to play with them. And they've actually been in the Herndon Parade. They put on concerts and so forth. And normally the Herndon High School band director had trouble getting the high school kids to go to Hutchison because no one was in the band from Hutchison. And about a year ago, they had 5 students at Hutchison because they had gone through that percussion program. So that has really changed their lives. And I think it's so important, like you said. You got to take guitar there. So these kids, because Arts Herndon made that available in their school.
And I think, I mean, you can see it's just on the most obvious level, the best thing about Herndon for young families is Friday Night Live. It is a concert that happens on the town green every Friday night in the summer. It's run completely by volunteers. I don't know how long they'll be able to do that because it's exhausting. But they get bands to come and play. Children come and play ball in the very front, and parents sit in the back and kind of relax out. It's like Herndon's living room, basically. You know, everybody gets together after work and after a work week, and they relax. Well, that's one way that the arts makes people happy. But another way is if you're hearing and participating in the arts, you're thinking of something bigger than yourself.
Right.
And on some level, you're experiencing a spiritual opening and awakening, and assuming you like it. If you don't like it, you might be experiencing something different. But my family has always been musical. We did drama, we did plays together. When I was growing up, my father, my mother, and I, and my brother would go to church and sing together. We would perform in plays together. My dad played the piano in bars, so whenever we had a party, he always played the piano and we sang and danced. That's family time. That's us really connecting with who we are as people. And you can't put a price on that. You have to, if you're in government, you have to figure out what the price of that is. But we shouldn't throw it out and say, you know, sports is important, but arts don't matter.
Yeah, I always love having the conversation with some of my friends who view it as strictly a cost.
Right.
Well, in business, you measure things from a cost, a profit loss perspective, quarter to quarter, year to year. But something like an investment in an amenity that touches so many people, how do you put a price tag on what some community did all those years ago for me and my family? How did they measure that dollar or 10 or 100 for the years I was there and the impact I had on my community surrounding that? You can't. You have to take a leap of faith and trust that this thing will ripple out positive And I know this is like idealistic to think about, and it's real dollars, but for people to take the hard line on, it's got to show a return, I just don't think that's the way it should work.
Well, I did bring something like that up.
Yeah.
We have one of our parks that usually they have porta potties there.
Oh, okay.
And so they decided one of the improvements would be that they were going to add restrooms. And that was quite an expensive addition, hundreds of thousands of dollars, or at least well over 100. So I did ask the question, how much are we going to make on this? What's our return?
Sure.
And we aren't getting one. I said, so this is just making it a nicer amenity for the community to use this park when they're out there? And that was the answer, yes. So I don't think the arts are any different than having a wonderful park where the children can play on play equipment or play on the baseball field or play, I think they have soccer there as well. And then they can go into a real bathroom. I don't think that's any different than going into a really nice art center.
Well, I won't argue with that.
Yeah.
In fact, we have a call from Dante from Fairfax.
Oh my.
And let's see, reading this. So Herndon sounds great. When can I come watch my first play? So
watch your first play.
Oh wow!
So
come
when's
on
the first
out.
performance art and gonna happen? When's all
Next
this gonna
Stop
happen?
Theater. Come on out this weekend.
Well,
Because
I think it was specifically in Herndon.
Oh,
So,
okay.
When would the art center be finished?
Yeah.
That'll be
So,
about 2 years.
2
If we
years
can get
out,
that,
okay.
if we can keep that moving forward, that'll be about 2 years. But you can still come on out to Herndon now, and if you come early, you can go downtown Herndon and eat dinner before, or they do have a couple of restaurants in that industrial park. But after it's over, most of the restaurants in that park have closed, and that's why people go to Reston.
Right. Yeah. And those are the tax dollars that could be coming.
That's
right
our
into
lost
Herndon.
tax income right
I know.
there.
It's
So-
But just in case Dante from Fairfax has some free time, right now they're doing a show called East of Eden. It's from a John Steinbeck novel, and it's a very riveting play, beautifully done as everything at Next Stop Theater is, very professional. And it's about a father and his hopes for his sons, and it's just very moving, and I recommend you go see it. So.
And they're known for doing pretty edgy stuff. I've seen quite a few very interesting plays over there that weren't just go sit and have a nice little time. They're very thought-provoking. The one about the 40
presidents.
40 presidents was absolutely wonderful.
Oh, okay.
It just made me know that we're going to survive because
That's right.
over the course of our country, we've had some pretty strange presidents. If you go back and really read history, some we've forgotten.
They've also have some very fun shows, and probably one of the best Kiss Me Kates I've ever seen was at Next Stop Theater.
Yes.
When it was over, I wanted to start and watch it all over again. It was so fun and so good. And of course, that's based on Shakespeare, so it must be.
And one of my favorites was the Rocky Horror Picture Show.
That would be funny.
That was they had that at the Industrial Strength Theater years ago, and it was absolutely awesome.
But if we're going to talk about arts, we certainly should mention the fabulous things that the Council for the Arts of Herndon did, which eventually became Arts Herndon.
Yeah. Do tell.
I think I will.
Yeah.
A few of us on the town council have been involved with this organization, but it was started over 30 years ago. And when we talk about the 30 years of development in downtown Herndon, none of this stuff has just happened. It's been happening for a long time. The arts groups that we now know in Herndon got started, all of them at least 30 years ago, and they've developed and flourished. But Arts Herndon was responsible for most of the murals all of the murals that are painted in the downtown. If you see any of those, one of my favorites is the pet mural that's on the Dominion Animal Hospital. That was
kind of the ice house. It looks like real people are sitting out there even in the winter under their umbrellas.
It does. If you drive down Eldon Street from, say, where Anita's is, if you look to the right, if you look to the right, you'll see what looks like a whole bunch of people sitting outside in a sunny day, and that's because an artist named Keith Naquin, who's just wonderful, and the Council for the Arts of Herndon raised the money to put that on there.
Yeah, and the one, I'll have to give a plug for the
Yes,
Dominion.
you do.
That, folks, it's pets. Everyone in the town lost their minds. Every pet on there is you identify, oh, that's so-and-so, that's so-and-so.
My cat Cesar is on
right.
there.
He's on
Not to
there.
be confused with Cesar here.
No. Although our dog there, Brownie's on there, but everyone's pet is on there. It was the coolest thing ever.
It was the coolest thing, and I happened to run into the woman who did all of the work to make that happen at a luncheon the other day. Her name was Karen Shoemaker, and she was determined. She and another board member from the Council for the Arts, Kathy Lanny, did an amazing amount of work raising money. Karen got Sherwin-Williams to donate paint. She got Home Depot to donate equipment. She begged, borrowed, stealed, pleaded. She probably threatened to break kneecaps to get people to.
It was easy. It was your pet. You write a check. No one's going to argue.
It was amazing. I mean, people were just so excited to do it. And, you know, the funny thing was that now I see little kids standing in front of it wanting their pictures to be taken next to somebody's pet. And that's really what we wanted. That Arts Council for the Arts of Herndon at that point was really focused on scholarships for kids, making sure that children's needs were met, particularly to do with the arts, and it was a great organization. Right now it has sort of morphed into a more sophisticated organization in some ways, but they still maintain that passion for grassroots art and bringing
the
it to the
programming,
people.
the different events.
Yes, and you should definitely go over there, especially when you're doing your Christmas shopping, because they have a great little shop where you can buy all kinds of real art.
You do. No, and
now there is one free dog on there.
Yeah.
Our Herndon police dog.
That's
so
right.
The Council for the Arts did that one for free, and the artists got kind of nervous because the officers from Herndon Police Department were coming over to make sure that he was painting the dog just right. He said, man, I'm really worried they're going to run me in if I don't paint this dog right.
No,
but
that's good.
He's a really cute dog on there.
No, I got to, and to close this out for the segment here, you two truly support the arts.
Yes, absolutely.
And I will tell you, I've never heard you all give it lip service. I question other folks on council because they do not truly support it. They'll support a grant at the end of the year through a budget and call that support. That is not support. You all truly support that, and as a supporter as well, I thank you for that. So we'll come back to some of those. So folks, in our final segment, we're going to get to even more good stuff, so please come back after this public announcement.
This is the story of a boy who is very sensitive to lights and sounds. So he built secret hiding places where nothing could get in. The boy didn't like looking people in the eye. It made him feel uncomfortable. One day, he found out he had something called autism. His family got him help, and slowly, he learned how to live with it better.
Early intervention can make a lifetime of difference. Learn the signs at autismspeaks.org.
What do you think you're doing, Kevin?
Was just gonna drive home.
There are several warning signs present that you shouldn't be driving.
Like hearing voices?
Like your text-to-emoji ratio?
Oh man, the selfies.
Selfie, nailed it.
We all have warning signs that let us know that we're probably not okay to drive. Mine is pretending to be your subconscious.
Craig, come on man, let's split a ride home.
Being a dad is an adventure full of special moments.
A cruise?
Right. Unexpected moments.
I got this.
And even awkward moments.
Okay, Dad, thank you.
But every moment you spend with your kids, even the smallest moments, can make the biggest impact on your child's life. So take a moment to be a dad today.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Hi folks, Cesar here, back with our final segment, and my guests, council members Sheila Olem and Signe Friedrichs. Ladies, I was looking at the charter, looking at stuff in Herndon, and there was nothing regarding any type of code of conduct or ethics that you would find in any Fortune 100 or small business. I bring that up because some people don't seem to have a need to pay attention to codes of conducts or ethics. So I wanted to put that out there specifically because there was a podcast that I heard of Herndon Mayor and a couple council members not behaving in the best light. And I just kind of want to get your thoughts on that and, kind of like give you my own sort of view. I'm a volunteer with the Fairfax County Reserve Deputy Sheriffs. And during the graduation, we were reminded that once you take that pledge, you are never off duty, that you are always to conduct yourselves in the most professional manner. Now, I didn't need a reminder of that because I'm a business person, so you never publicly say anything or record it on the podcast for mass distribution that you wouldn't want your child to hear. So thoughts on going forward, maybe changing where you have people adhere to a standard of code of conduct and some ethics.
Because I can tell you as a parent, my kids are grown now, but when they were younger, more than once I said, please do not publicly humiliate me.
Right. Right, you have the same last name.
Right, we got the same last name, and I don't think they would want me to publicly humiliate them. And I know we have had situations over the years, even prior to my being on the council, where we had council members behave poorly, and citizens were very upset and came to meetings and expressed that. So I have a professional license, and if I had been taking part in that podcast, I might not have a license anymore. But
I'm not talking about like one instance where, someone gets drunk at a bar and acts stupid. We're all human. But when it's a repeating pattern, when it's an obvious issue, that's when I think everyone's got to agree on what behavior is acceptable in representing, a body as an elected official, right? And there's no recourse. Doesn't seem to be anything in any of these sort of dockets or the charter where behavior, it's almost like you have to remind people to behave a certain way.
I think so, because we've even had it at our in our state elected officials that people have done some pretty embarrassing things, and
I think we depend on each other at this point. It's very informal. We depend on each other to monitor each other's behavior, and I don't think that's proper. I would like to support in the future some kind of code of conduct or code of ethics that we all agree to and that we try to stick by. I can't judge anybody else's behavior, but I do feel that public officials have an obligation to support their entire citizenship, including all their businesses, and I hate to see either subtle or overt or covert actions taken against businesses that are done by council members. There's nothing that you can really do about them right now, and I think we all agree that there are certain things that we consider to be off limits, but we don't all agree on which things those are. Right. And we can certainly develop a code of conduct. That there's no reason not to.
Look, I think what's clear to me is there was a podcast one day, it was published, people reacted, And you can't find the podcast anymore. So, well, except some of us
Except
recorded it.
a few people recorded it.
Well, I'm glad we can't find it anymore because that shows
that's
that
my
the
point,
person
right?
who
That's my point,
the
right?
person who did it didn't feel good about it. And I mean, we definitely had citizens come to the town council and express their feelings in rather strong terms, and rightly so. And I think we can all agree that that's something we shouldn't do anymore.
So here's just
Only one thing, full disclosure. If you're watching, that was not me that lady was talking about when they came to the town council meeting.
right.
So
No, we're
my
not
boys
trolls.
are watching this. You
Yeah.
don't have to reprimand me because I did not do that.
Right. No, I just think it's if you have to be reminded, maybe it's a good thing. Don't drink in public when you know there's something going to be recorded. Just back off and just be nice, be humble, be kind.
And
Be kind.
we need
That's
to
a good one.
Yes, and we need to remember that we serve these people. We are elected officials, and it is our job to serve all of our citizens.
I vote. You report to me.
Right, sir.
Yeah, I'm just saying, as a voter, elected officials are accountable. It's not the other way around.
And we know they are, but people get carried away and behave in ways that, in retrospect, they're sorry they behaved, but then they're embarrassed. And so, you know, yes, I think putting down a code of conduct that, for example, you won't go behind people's backs and file anonymous complaints, that you'll address things directly, that you won't. I mean, there are so many things that I could say that I don't think I'm going
what
to.
you've done, and
Don't lie.
Don't lie that someone else forged your information.
Yeah, these
just
are
look,
things
you
that
gotta own
are
it.
basic.
You gotta own it, and I think growing up Catholic, they kind of beat that in you. So own it and just own it, and.
Well, I mean, you can always say, I shouldn't have done that. I got overexcited, and I'm sorry.
And most
But
people
if you,
forgive that.
Yes.
Most people understand we're all human.
Well, years ago, when that guy that's running for re-election to Senate, Tim Kaine, came to Herndon, and we had 4 members of of that past town council outside protesting him being in our town. It was very embarrassing, and a lot of people were upset. They never owned that.
Yeah, and again, it's okay to you have every right to protest in your private time, but that's my point. There's no private time when you are an elected official or you've taken an oath.
Exactly.
And that's, I think, where people, once you take that oath, you give up certain personal liberties. You just do.
Right.
Sorry, that comes with the position. So anyway, I wanted to put that out there because there were quite a few people that have talked to me about that.
Yeah.
A lot of people blogged about it. And the question was, how can this happen, or why does this happen? And we can go into the philosophical reasons, but there's really no code of conduct currently for anyone to model any type of behavior by. So,
yeah, and
that's not what we want.
Yeah, we've had a couple of instances since I've been on council, and we had one individual that had to be talked to because of things that they were saying, very derogatory about town staff, and it was pretty bad. I mean, it could have hurt their chances of future employment if they went elsewhere. So,
do you all believe in instigating or promoting term limits?
I tell you what, when you're looking at a town and you look all around the Commonwealth of Virginia and you talk to a lot of the towns and term limits, they had one municipality that changed their charter to lower the number of town council members running because they couldn't even get people to run. They had
Really?
7. They had 7
Okay.
like us, but it was a much smaller municipality. Wow. Probably didn't have 1,200.
That's like an HOA.
So they finally.
It's like no one wants to run
right.
in the HOA. Okay.
So they finally brought it down to 5 instead of 7, or maybe I'm pretty sure that was it. But I know when I first moved to Herndon, for years, nobody would run. There would only be the number of people running that there were on the council. And then sometimes we'll have a lot more, and then you do at least get some options out there. But it's just trying to getting people to serve on HPRB, the Historic Preservation Review Board, or the Board of Zoning Appeals, the Planning Commission, it's really difficult to get people to do that. I served for 7 years on the Board of Zoning Appeals, and after I was off of it, when I first got on council, they only had one person out of the 5 that had been on it for more than a year, because people would get on and go, I don't like this, and get off, because it takes up your time.
I just wanted a title.
Right, I just wanted a title. I got to come to a meeting.
Anything. I just want a title.
You meet every month? What?
Yeah.
So I've always felt that term limits were practically done by people being voted out of office, but I do start to wonder sometimes, having only been in this position for 2 years almost, I know that having people treat you the way they do once you're on town council, it's very hard to keep humble when people invite you to galas and take pictures of you. And
meet my mom.
No, well, my mom would keep me humble, except she's too awesome.
And I have 2 sons, and
Yeah.
they're always keeping me humble. So.
But I will say that if there have been times when I have thought it would help if people could only do 2 consecutive terms. Like, get off, do something else for a while, come back. You know, if it's consecutive, you know, it's 4 years, you've just started to realize how fantastic you are, and then you're out of office.
Well,
and
then let's save that for Congress, because there are way too many people where that's their career.
Yeah.
And this was never meant to be anyone's career. And I'm not talking, you know, municipalities. It's more the, you know, if you think about the congressional makeup, there are people that have been there, what, 10, 15 consecutive terms. I mean, that just, to me,
do you remember when the first President Bush was running for re-election, and he got pilloried because he didn't know about scanners in a grocery store? He went to a grocery store and thought, oh, wow, look at this great thing. Well, I think to some extent it really helps you to stop being an elected official, get out there, do some other job, interact with different people, and then come back, you know? So I'm not completely against term limits anymore. I think there's something to it.
I'm not suggesting for you all, because you
do
a great job, but just in the ethereal, you know, just that was another discussion some people had. But
and also people, you know, talk about municipalities like towns and counties and so forth running as independents. And the reason is because when you're in a state commonwealth like Virginia and you have a lot of government workers, they couldn't run if
they had to run in a party.
Hatch Act, sure.
Right. And we wouldn't have any resources.
Well, that's a whole nother
segment
there.
Well, we'll get you back. So good luck tomorrow in the election.
Good luck to you as
well.
Well, I'm there to serve, and win, lose, or draw, I'll be happy.
All right.
Folks, appreciate you joining us, and look for us on our next segment.